What's up, everybody? Simon here. On this episode, we have a very special guest. This individual, Lex Orosco, I hope I said your name right, Lex, is a top real estate agent here in the Bay Area, but not just in the Bay Area, in one of the hottest markets in the Bay Area, which is San Jose, California. If you guys don't know San Jose, it has been one of the most booming areas to rent and own a property, and it's because of the tech industry. He's not far from me. We are doing a Google Meet to go over some of his successes, how he got to this level, because to get to this level is not easy. And there are a lot of real estate agents and brokers out there, but Lex seems to have a secret formula, and we're going to find out what that is. Lex, thank you for coming on the podcast. I truly appreciate it. Let's get right to it. How did you start in real estate for a decade? It's not something that's easy to achieve the success that you've achieved.
Doesn't feel like a decade, but kind of fell into it backwards. Born and raised in the Bay Area, went to San Jose State, got out of college and worked a regular 9-to-5 job, then worked at Google for a couple years. Wasn't really my passion, so was looking for a different avenue to get into. Started a side business with some family members and some family friends. One of the members of that group that we started a company with was a realtor. I was still working my 9-to-5 job, and I gave up my weekends to work at this new venture. And he just saw how hard I work. So he spent a lot of time just trying to convince me to get into real estate. Probably took him about 6 to 8 months to wear on me and eventually get my license. And then from there, it was just a very, very, very slow progression, throughout the years, and just consistently getting a little bit better, but by no means was it any type of immediate success. My first couple of years, I think I sold 2 houses, and then 5 houses, and then 7 houses, and then just slowly progressed from there. But it took a long time to definitely get to this point.
That's really nice. So it sounds to me that you kind of had a mentor or someone that really pushed you in the beginning, or saw something in you that was maybe something you didn't see at one point, and this individual kept saying, hey, you could do this, or saw something that's a fire in you. Does that sound about right?
Kinda. So someone, initially gave me the idea to get into real estate. I quickly went off on my own. It was a different type of, practice that they were doing, right? More REOs at that time and flipping. And I was trying to go more into the just regular residential aspect of it. So for the first 5 years, I would say I had no mentor, and I think that's in part why my growth was so stunted, and why it took so long for me to get to real success in this business. I think it also has played a big part in, now that I'm at this point, in keeping me humble, because it did take so long. I tell everyone it took 5 years to get my first listing. So people think I just had immediate success, or I was listing homes right away. And nowadays there's agents that are coming out of the gates with 5, 6, 7 listings their first year, which I love it. But I think it's definitely a different industry these days. And, I kind of had to learn it the hard way. I had to, grind for every referral that I got, and just, work my kind of small sphere that I had, and just slowly get better. But it was really me and my, consistent approach to being the first one at the office, last one to leave. For the first 5 years, I never saw myself getting to number 1 in San Jose, or even having, really any type of success. I just saw what I could do with the 24 hours that were in front of me, and really just focused on getting as much as, out of those days as I could.
That's incredible. I mean, a lot of people on Instagram, they never see like the backstory of the success, right? They think, well, this guy kind of got lucky, or they think this guy kind of was handed something from his father, or someone, put him on the map, so to speak. And it sounds to me like you did the grind from the beginning. I mean, 5 years to get a few listings and not quit. That's pretty incredible, right? And during those 5 years, you probably weren't making crazy money to really enjoy a lifestyle or afford something that you really potentially wanted. It was kind of a not give up attitude, it sounds like.
I would have had a dad that put me on and gave me, kind of a legacy and a foundation to work off of. But, it was just a grind and a lot of sacrifice. And, I think one thing for me is that, a lot of kids, if they get into real estate or entrepreneurship early on, or, they kind of have a little bit of success in their 20s and they're, make some money. I never really knew what, real money was and what it was to make a good living. So it was never, anything, different for me. I made my job out of college, I made $25 an hour and I felt like I was doing really good.
Yeah.
And, the economy was going through a bit of a recession at that time. And I never felt the recession. So I felt good, but never like I was, really, really doing well, or that this was going to be my be all end all. Just got really lucky that I was, shown the way to get into real estate and, truly found something that I love to do. And I love to get up every morning and get after it. And it's never, ever felt like, a day of work.
Was money a big thing in your household when you grew up? Was like this discussed among your family or maybe your parents, where it was like an issue that made you want to get more money? Or was it something that you did what you like to do and money just came with it?
Yeah, it was never discussed. I had a great, role model in my mother, working very, very hard, just trying to do every single mother, trying to do everything she could to just, give me a great life, and, never felt anything but that. But it was never, ever about money. It was never about, getting to a certain point. I just knew I did have a feeling inside that I was going to be successful in some which way. I just had no idea what it was going to be. But, just again, very lucky to have found this and to found an industry where there's no limit to, what you can make or what you can do with it. It's just a matter of how much, time and effort you put into it. And for me, that's always been the key, right? Outworking everyone else, putting in more hours. I always feel like if I'm up 2 hours before everyone, they're never going to catch me. Continue on and work later. No one's ever going to get ahead of me. And, whether it's been good, bad, indifferent, it's always worked out, always, because I've put the work in. And I've just never veered off of that mindset.
I love that. I think the audience, if they could take something from it, is be first in, last out. Just put in the grind, and those little increments of what you were doing every day really led to where you are today. It is what it sounds like to me. It's those little habits or the little things that you're building daily that you don't see as a reward. 5 years from now, you don't even know if it'll come into fruition where you're gonna enjoy the benefit. But if you keep grinding and you keep doing it, something positive will come out. And guys, that has happened with Lex. I mean, over 170 million in sales in 2022, and his team over 350 million in sales in 2022. That's incredible. So what's one of the proudest achievements you have being in the business that you're in, and the success that you've seen, aside from a monetary, I'm number one ranked? What do you feel is like really you look back at it, or you look forward and say, wow, this is where I'm at and this is what I'm really proud of?
Not to mention it, I think about it in a little bit of a different way, but hitting number one in a city like San Jose really is something that shed a couple of tears when that was the case. And again, just never having the thought of getting to this point or getting to this level of success in this business. Mainly because I just still don't see myself at that level. There's great agents who, have been doing this for, decades. Year after year, they're in the top 1%. They sell over 100 million. They, have put so much time and effort into it. Whereas when I look at, my career, yeah, it's been, very good, but it's 2 great years of hitting over 110 million. If you look at it in, a sports analogy, right, that's not a Hall of Fame career. That's a couple good years, and, I can be easily forgotten. It's great to achieve what I've achieved. But it's only the start of, and I never, take my eye off that for 1 second.
I love that. So you're not taking the foot off the gas. You're not complacent. You're not going to say, hey, I did it. I'm number one. I'm going to go travel for half a year. You're really looking at constantly improving yourself, not only on a skill set level, but also the rankings levels. I think as I do these interviews, the very successful people have that same mindset that I'm seeing. And and people that have made it to a very exponentially high level. And I mean, like where they're sitting well on a yacht or something, they tend to switch that mindset and say, now I'm going to start enjoying it. So kudos to you for continuing to push. I've been in a situation where I felt that I've achieved something and I took my foot off the gas in the past a little bit. And you know what I'll tell you? It's like going to the gym. When you stop going for a month or something like this, you don't just lose like a month of training or bodybuilding. You lose a lot, and it takes time to get back into that shape or that stamina. And the same way with business, right? I'm sure you would agree that if you were to take your foot off the gas, someone is just as hungry out there, if not hungrier, would really come in and take your spot. All right, let's talk about some of the biggest challenges you faced in building to the number one rank. And that's very impressive, as I mentioned. I mean, you could tell me a little bit about San Jose after, how competitive it is for the audience and what you're seeing in this category. But what are some of the biggest challenges you've had? And you mentioned a mentor briefly, but what else do you think was really tough for you to overcome to get to where you are?
Mentor is a big thing, that kind of, my success really took off when I really did find, a mentor. And that was about 5 years, into the business. Before that, I don't think it's being too proud, but I just didn't have the knowledge or kind of foresight to go out and just ask somebody for help or ask that right person to try to join their team for nothing. So just kind of by chance, I was lucky enough in, I think, my fifth year to come across an individual who, was already doing very, very well in the industry. Didn't really know much about him, but, was doing very, very well and needed someone to come in on his team and kind of join his team. And didn't know it at the time, but that was definitely kind of my mentorship, starting. And really learned, a great foundation of the business, even though I had already been in for 5 years and, work ethic was not an issue. Properties, learning how to run, a business on a large scale was what I picked up from that experience. And it really changed me, going forward. It lifted my confidence. It lifted, taught me how to market, how to generate business. And at the end of the day, that's, what real estate is, right? Being a lead generator every day and creating opportunities out of nothing every single day.
Would you recommend to the audience or to someone really starting out to really seek a mentor from the beginning to kind of streamline that process of the checks and balances or learning from mistakes? Because I imagine you, without a mentor, made more mistakes maybe than you would have made if you did have someone to run things off of. Now, you did learn and grow thicker skin because of it, I'm sure. But do you recommend someone, like if they are getting into something like real estate or another business, they seek mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, this is a tough industry. And it takes money to make money. And you're going to need to be able to support yourself early on as you're, not closing deals and making money. So that's the first thing I think everyone needs to figure out is how are they going to get through those first rough years that, in starting any business is going to be that way. Right. So I think that's the first thing. Definitely finding somebody, to latch onto, to learn from is something really, really important. But you also need to know going in that you're going to need to give something to get something, right? And you're going to need to offer to work for free or work for a very, very low commission. And I think people are so quick to look at, the commission splits and what they bring in, but are so fast to overlook, the knowledge that they're going to gain. For me, when I met my, mentor, my biggest thing was, all right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to spend, as much time as I can learning absolutely everything that I can from this person. And not only on the clock, but off the clock, right? Whatever they ate, I ate. Whatever they did, I did. I wanted to be an absolute shadow to this person so I can just absorb everything, and it ended up being 2 years that I felt like, okay, I can, step away now and do my own thing. And maybe it was a little bit too soon, or maybe it was a little bit too late, who knows, but it all worked itself out. But the main thing was that, I didn't have an ego. I didn't care about splits. I initially said, all right, I'm going to go over because the split's lower. I'm going to make less, but I'm going to learn everything I could. And it turned out to be exactly the opposite. I made way more than, I ever made in any year of my career. And I learned, I went from a bachelor's to a doctorate in real estate in probably about a month and a half.
Wow. So you put the ego behind you. You said, "Hey, I'm not the leader in this space at this time or moment in time, and I need to absorb." You took a what you thought would be a pay cut in terms of, "Hey, I'm not going to get greedy. I'm going to learn. I'm going to make some money, but this is kind of a crash course." And it really worked out for you. It sounds like where you were able to put your ego aside and absorb knowledge, which really made you where you're at. And a lot of times I noticed that people don't do that. They value themselves too high. And I've had, and it's really interesting. I'll tell you one, Lex. I've had people that this isn't the big world's biggest podcast. Now I'm successful in business and so forth, but I've had people that are have a big following or have like a presence. They're on TV and so forth. And they're like, yeah, let's do this podcast. Let's get it going. They put their ego aside. They're like, yeah, we'll show up. We know, like, we like what we see, where you're going with this. And then I've had people that are pretending to be someone asking, how much do you pay to get on this podcast? And my response is like, hey, I'm giving up my time. I've had people that have like yachts giving up their time. What makes you think like you don't want to share with the audience, or that I'm going to pay you for this time? And I get it. It's a business, but that's where the ego comes in. I think when people give up the ego, and I'm sure you will agree, you just learn so much more. I think you're in a better spot because every experience is just that much more rewarding. Would you agree with that?
Why, things have happened the way they've happened for me, and why I've been so fortunate, because I do choose to give back so much. I choose to hold, seminars and presentations, and I'll, jump on absolutely anybody's podcast. I'll take, 15, 20 minutes out of any day to talk to any agent that, wants some time, because you never know if that agent's gonna, have the drive that I did and become a top agent at one point. And, they'll be able to kind of share that story that, a good person did give a little bit of time up. And for me, I'm always indebted to this industry because I did get such, great mentorship, great help. I don't think anyone will be able to get the training that I did over the 2 years that I did with, my mentor. But I'm 100% always indebted because, again, never would have believed I'd have this life right now. And the fact that I do is just a testament to how amazing life is, right? And what you put in, you get out.
That's cool, man. I truly, that's a blessing, and that's really kind of you to not only stay humble. I think that's a very big one we could discuss, but stay humble and really give back. So someone's coming in. Let's say you got a kid watching out there. He wants to be a real estate agent, or he wants to work at a broker ship such as yours. And what advice would you give someone that's freshly coming in, no experience, and just what would you tell that person to know what to expect in the next few years, or as he progresses in his journey, or her journey, I should say?
Expect it to be long hours, not a lot of pay, scrapping together every day just to try to make something happen, right? And be open to accepting every possible way to get business that there is out there, right? Just say yes to everything. Say yes to every open house. Say yes to jumping on the phone, say yes to door knocking, like try everything. Everything works as long as you're consistent, but people need to find out what they're good at. What I'm good at is marketing, sending out, more flyers than anyone else, and being able to convert when those phone calls do come in. Some people are great on the phone. Some people are, great at door knocking. The issue is when, you're great at something and then you see someone else do something, good, and then that kind of takes your attention away from it. So maybe you're like, oh, he's getting business like this, let me go try to do this. No, like focus on what you're good at, triple down on that. And don't worry about what anyone else out there is doing, because they're not walking the same path that you are. You got to create your own path, and you got to do it, the best way that's going to work for you. I don't think people are willing to spend, 25 grand a month on marketing like I am, but they also don't have the confidence to convert when the call comes in like I do, right? So I think that plays a big part in your strategy and how you decide to run with this business.
So don't get distracted. Don't look at someone else's success and really think that just because they did this, don't pivot and lose focus of what you're really good at and what you're doing. I appreciate those kind words. I totally agree with you. I think oftentimes with all the social media and everything that goes on, we definitely lose focus in the direction that we try to go based on what someone else is sometimes doing. And what the audience should understand and people should understand is sometimes that's pushing you 2 steps backwards because you work so far to get to your level of what you're doing. And then if you just take the focus off, you're back down to square one, starting over on that new game plan. All right. Thank you for that, Lex. All right. Let's talk about San Jose. I've lived in the Bay Area 30 years. I wasn't born and raised here, but I've seen San Francisco change. I've seen San Jose change. I've been here during the 2000 first .com experience and the 08 crash, and then, everything in between kind of. What is it like being a realtor in San Jose and living, I assume you live in San Jose or nearby as well. What's changed? What is it like? What's the market like?
Market's tough. I mean, 40% less inventory in this area. Cream is kind of rising to the top. In my opinion, big teams are separating themselves. The teams with heavier bankrolls that are able to continue to market during this tough time that there's not as much business are the ones that are going to come out of this, tough time, even further apart than we already are, right? The role, of the broker is less and less, in my opinion, and it's more the individual agent. So, myself doing I think a pretty good job marketing myself. And, when I'm walking around the city or when I'm doing presentations or when I'm in a big group of people, the chances of, a ton of these people have received my flyers and me being in their mailbox is very, very high. So, the market's changed quite a bit. We're in line for another change, in the years to come, as hopefully, Google does go through and, create that project that they're talking about downtown. And for me, that's, kind of where I'm building towards. I want to have huge market share in this area. And I think we're going to be, in my opinion, when we get out of this tough period, we're probably going to go through the best run of housing that we've had in a long time, kind of going to settle down, and people are going to be okay with those, interest rates. So I'm expecting a great, probably a tough, 6 months to a year. I think when things get better, I think we're going to go on a great streak. And for me, I always wish that I was positioned where I am right now in 2011. But now, one thing we haven't talked about is I created a marketing company to help agents, do the farming that I do for other agents. So, really growing that company and growing my own personal, farming, mailing, just to get it to the point of being, absolutely prepared when this next run does come, that, no one's going to have a bigger presence around here than myself.
So let's talk about 2 points. We're going to talk about your marketing company hereafter, and we'll decide, or not decide, we'll talk about why you created it, which is pretty much, I would assume, because you were so good at doing it for yourself, you said, why not? Why is there such a low inventory? Now, with COVID and with everything that happened and the forbearance period, people were thinking there would be a huge foreclosure coming out of the gates after all the payments would resume and so forth. And that hasn't really happened, which is really weird. Now, we did have historic low interest rates during those times. The interest rate is not historically high, but it's high in comparison. What's causing this shortage of real estate inventory? It's kind of interesting.
People just, don't want to leave their 3%, rate to jump up to a 6.5 right now. And, you're kind of paying quite a bit more for a similar, house, right? So only getting very few people that are selling these days. You're getting people that have inherited homes, people that are retiring and, it's their time and they're moving out of state, and they've always set this time, regardless of how the market is. They knew they were going to, leave. So it's just a small, much smaller group of people that, kind of have to sell at this time. and you're not getting those casual sellers that, hey, the market's great, although it is great, and houses are going way over asking because but you're not getting that casual person that's just okay, it sounds like seems like a good time to sell right now. Let's you're really getting people that are thinking through it, that are taking a much longer time to make that decision, that if they don't have to, they're waiting it out to see what next month and next year brings. We are going into an election year next year, so there and how that's gonna affect the market, but thankfully in our city, it's been pretty strong, and surrounding cities it's been pretty strong. Housing is still moving. The rest of the country is definitely experiencing a much different market with houses sitting. So we're just blessed to live around here, and blessed to have the intellectual capital around here that kind of keeps this thing rolling.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bay Area, particularly the Silicon Valley area, San Jose, Los Altos, those areas, Atherton, et cetera, Woodside, you've got such an enormous amount of money and shortage of housing, that we're in our own little microclimate bubble. Even if the real estate market crashes somewhere else, we don't really see it, or I haven't seen it in 30 years. In fact, it's historically just keeps going up and up and up. But that is that's something that I'm also proud of. I always tell people that in the Bay Area, if you have the work ethic like you do, Lex, and others that I've got a chance to just talk to, you could really build a massive amount of wealth here. Another real estate agent that I've had on my podcast, Tracy McLaughlin, she's in Marin County. I think she's like ranked 50th in the country, and number one in Marin County. She mentioned that because of the costs of the Bay Area living, such as rent and so forth, and the younger generation getting out of college, they're moving back in with ma and pa more, which kind of slows down the process of a sale. Like, no longer is mom's and dad's home a retirement sell-off home to move to Florida or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Is that happening a lot in San Jose, where you're seeing maybe that's kind of delaying some of the sales as well, where kids are moving back in with their parents and now they can't just dump the house?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely plays a part. I mean, it's kind of sad that, many of the people that I went to college with, aren't able to buy a house. And a lot of my friends, have never been able to buy homes. Really, really tough to get that down payment together and, be able to, make that first purchase that inevitably kind of keeps it rolling, and, you build the equity, and then you're able to roll up to the next house. So that's been one kind of disheartening thing about it. And, it's great that I've had the success and been able to do this, but, to see friends around me either move out of area or move back in with their parents because, they just can't, purchase a home. It's a tough part about living around here. It's a great thing, but it's also, one of the negative things, to living around here. So, I think it all plays a part in slowing the process down right now, and everyone's just taking that much more time to think through and make sure that it's the right decision to sell, and that's why we're having such little inventory out here.
What do you think in terms of someone wanting to buy a house now? What is your advice to a younger generation individual? How would they get their first house, or what would you say is the course to possibly getting their first place in this climate and in this difficult area? And then we could talk about after whether or not tech has kind of ruined their chances of owning a home because of these crazy salaries. Not everyone's a Google engineer, you know what I mean, in San Jose.
Yes.
So what would be the direction someone in your mind should potentially take to possibly get in their first home?
In your 20s. I mean, I think really, these days with social media, Instagram, and all the stuff going on, everyone wants to flash and flaunt and, be, driving the nicest car and having the nicest bag. But I really think if you kind of suck it up early on and you really just start stacking, I mean, they say it's, toughest to get your first 100,000, but after that, it gets a lot easier, right? So, try to get to that first 100,000 as quickly as possible by saving absolutely everything you can and just living very humble and kind of poor. And if you got to stay home, with mom and dad, do that. But just do everything you can to save up, because it is possible, right? And, you said it, housing continues to go up in this area. So if you can get yourself into a starter home, chances are you're going to build some equity in there and, be able to sell it, have a larger down payment with the equity that you've gained and roll that into your next home. And that's what it's going to take around here. As times change and they get harder, you have to kind of adapt, right? It's not the days of our parents where, everyone was able to buy a home because they were 300,000 or 200,000, right? You gotta adapt. And if you want to make it in here make it in this area and, buy a home, it's going to take some sacrifice. I just think that's something that we kind of lack because we so want that immediate
gratification and achievement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I totally agree. I think, in today's world, everyone wants everything now. We're just so programmed for it, right? The information that comes in, the food that gets delivered, it needs to get delivered in 30 minutes and so forth. But sacrifice is a big one. I personally had to do that when I was young. I slept in a warehouse for like 2 years of a place that I rented to save up the down payment. And as you mentioned, it's like, hey, go live with your parents. If your rent is $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom or whatever it may be, and that's realistic in San Jose and San Francisco, and it may be even higher, obviously. You save up for 3 years, biting your tongue and living with mom and pa or your in-laws, and that's already $100,000 that you've saved, not paying rent. So that's potentially a down payment on a smaller starter. And I've also told people, and again, I'm not in real estate, but if you could get a duplex and someone else helps you pay the mortgage and they're qualified and they have great credit, that also helps out. I don't know if San Jose has these, but in the Sunset in San Francisco, they have, in-law units that a lot of people would buy, rent out the bottom for $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And that helps pay some of that mortgage as well. Cool. So what about growing up in San Jose? How has that changed in terms of what do you see as far as quality of life? Because, I see what is happening with San Francisco. I'm not too fond of it. Has San Jose been affected by kind of the same, it's getting a little dirtier? Is that affecting buyers or sellers for moving out, moving in, or is it kind of just, it is what it is downtown? And
yeah, it's always been kind of a melting pot here. I think more so, demographics are changing, and you are getting that, mostly tech workers, mostly engineers, mostly doctors, lawyers. Higher end are the ones that are able to purchase these homes in these neighborhoods. So the neighborhoods are definitely changing. Schools are getting better in many different areas because buying into some of these areas that weren't great in the past, a lot of money to get into these areas. So now that's raising the neighborhood, raising the school districts. So there's good and bad to everything. I think it's again, I think the worst part is we talked about it is having personally friends and family have to move out of here because they can't afford it, and they it's tough to make it around here. But it definitely strength kind of gives you a harder shell, because you have to be tougher, you have to work harder to make it happen in this area that doing just the minimum is not gonna get you there. And I'm seeing more and more now that as the economy is starting to tighten up, less people are taking trips. You're seeing less people doing big things on social media, and more and more people are kind of feeling the pinch of what's happening. And I don't think still think we have a ways to go to get through this rough patch. So I think everyone's kind of experienced it across the board, and it's not an easy place to live. Similar to New York City and places like that. It's a grind here, but it's something that I love to do, and I'm kind of made for this area.
I love that. It definitely is not easy. I find it in this area. You're never at ease in this area. It kind of goes back to what we said earlier. If you take your foot off the gas, you're going to be behind because it's constantly, the cost of living here keeps going up. To get into a good school district, you mentioned earlier, it's very pricey. We're talking $5 million homes in some cases, in the Atherton, Woodside areas, Los Altos. And I'm sure there's better schools now in San Jose as well. But a lot of times what I've experienced even in San Francisco is if you're, aside from a few select schools, you're basically sending your kids to private school in a lot of areas, and that's like a second mortgage in some cases, or a very hefty price. Right nowadays, a high school is almost as much as a college, which is crazy. I don't know if you do that, but it's like some of these private schools are $50,000 a year for high school, and that's insane. Let's talk about the tech. You mentioned some of your friends are kind of out of that ballpark of being able to own a home or to finally be able to afford a home, so they're potentially moving out. Do you feel the tech industry, not in some sense, I'm going to say maybe ruined is a very harsh word, but do you think it's spoiled the real estate market if you're not an investor, if you're just someone that's really hoping to get a footprint in the Bay Area?
If it went the other way and tech wouldn't have landed here and it would just be, I think that, it's created so many opportunities, not only for tech workers, right? Construction is huge. And a lot of my friends work in construction. They've had nonstop work for the last, 8 years, right? And then everything that works off of the tech industry, healthcare industry, there's just so much that, I'd rather have a great economy where I live than, economy that, sometimes doing well, sometimes not, or just not have that, not that mainstay that's here, right? We have something that attracts people from all over the world. And that's something that I would never, I'm always thankful that I've been, born and blessed to live in this area because it's afforded me so many possibilities. I could have just as easily, stayed in another industry and not went this way and not experienced that success, but, chose to take a risk and go in this, direction. And I think a lot of people who have taken those risks have, really, spring forward, and been living for themselves. So regardless of where you live, you have to adapt to, what's around you. And if your eyes aren't open, if you're not looking for opportunities, then you're never going to be able to take advantage of any of them.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're too worried about a big opportunistic area where you live. In fact, you find that to be a rewarding thing where you're going to come in and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to be able to compete in this market. It's all mindset. And you rather be in an area that's booming because you could take advantage of that versus a depleted area where you're scrapping for things versus really staying ahead of it. I do agree. I've seen a couple reverse just kind of ideas or points on that where they feel like it priced out a lot of millennials, it priced out of a lot of individuals in the area. But those individuals, kind of goes back to doing more and really staying ahead of the game. I feel like if you can do more, be the first one in and last one out and really grind out and sacrifice, you'd be ahead of the time. And then you would actually have investments that are going to continue to blossom because you see the equity rising and other things because of the demand of this area. All right. You mentioned earlier, you like to wake up early and you like to be ahead of things. Do you work out in the morning? Has that been part of your regimen to keep a healthy mindset?
Start my day out with, eating breakfast, getting a workout in, just trying to, come to the office with the right mindset. I think if you get that workout in, that's one of the hardest things that, you're going to do in the day. So it's good to get that out early. And it just, puts me in a, real aggressive mindset to where like, I really want to tackle the day. I really want to, make a lot happen. And then that just kind of carries me throughout the day and, usually end up working late and, going back to, what's kind of how the years kind of progressed and changed, we talked about, I started a marketing company and that's, I lost my motivation for real estate a bit.
You did.
I did, doing probably about 220 deals in 2 years, 21 and 2022, kind of just, I don't know, you get to a point where it's just, how much more can you really do? So it's probably, I'd say 6 months of this year, I was kind of really just going through the motions. I was still the first at the office, still getting up early. That's never going to change. Still getting my workouts in, but just didn't have the, momentum and motivation that, I needed to really, get back to where I wanted to get to. So in starting, the marketing company that I did, impact mail marketing. And it helps agents, farm the way that I do. And it's showing them how I got the success that I did. And it gives them all the tools that I've used over the years to, really get their business going. But, in doing that, I've had to go back to, the ground floor and kind of grind again and put in, 10, 12, 14-hour days, just to get this company off the ground. And that, has really got my motivation for real estate back, because I love grinding every day, but I want to be able to put more time and get back to selling and get back to, putting up the numbers that I know I'm capable of in real estate. But I don't, I know that there's loose ends that I need to tie up in my marketing business just to make sure it all runs smoothly, right? So, have to take care of one thing before you can take care of the other. And, really focusing on that right now. But again, it's really gotten my motivation back. And, it's kind of weird things happen, when they're supposed to, right? And this happened at the right time, to kind of get that momentum rolling, and now it's starting to pick up, and now I'm starting to feel that 2024 is going to be a huge year.
Big year. Let me ask you a two-part question. Why do you feel you and we kind of talked about it, I said you got maybe burnt out, but why do you feel you lost some motivation in real estate? And then why did you want to start the marketing company?
I'd say I lost the momentum, right? The hardest thing in the world, motivation. Yeah, I lost a little bit, but when, even if I wasn't fully, feeling great about it, and I still had the momentum and deals were flowing, I would probably still carry through. But once you talked about it, if you don't go to the gym for a month, you lose a lot, right? And kind of taking my foot off the brake a little bit and letting that momentum from 2022 go away. Took so long to get it back, right? And that was part of the frustration and part of, just not feeling great about things, that it wasn't just happening the way that, I felt it should have. And part is due to the market, part is due to, not focusing as much time as I should, in real estate. But again, I think everyone, sometimes just needs a reset, and that was my reset. And that was my, kind of, moment to get humbled and to realize that it's not always going to come that easy. And, I needed to change things, and I kind of reset my whole business. I reset, everything that I was doing. And out of all that, grew the marketing company that myself and, my partner started. And that's kind of blossomed very quickly. And, it's been awesome to be able to help so many agents, kind of do what I do and build a real future in real estate for themselves, behind our farming program.
Is this marketing company, it's nationwide, I would imagine, or is it's nationwide? Sweet.
Yeah. That's great. So we have 26 agents in 7 states, in 6 months of business.
And for that company, are you also doing kind of the closing, as you mentioned you were doing for real estate, or do you now have people that are selling the services or getting agents signed up?
Yeah, it's not so much closing, right? Because it needs to be sold, but it doesn't, right? What I've done over the last 12 years, and what my partner's done, and the numbers that we've built based solely off of farming. So it's more of a conversation with an agent on where they see their business in the coming years, and how I can help them get to that point. And for me, farming is the been all my success. And for other agents, for me to be able to show them how to slowly get there and how to slowly build that business, is kind of what it's all about, right? That giving back factor. And we've seen a lot of agents that have already gotten deals off of it in a tough market. And the ones that persist through this rough market are the ones that are going to come out on top when we do get over the hump and get back to having a good inventory and a good market.
Wonderful. So it sounds like during the downtime with inventory, you started another company. So now you got 2 babies to take care of. What about talking to a potential seller of a home or a buyer of a home? What should they expect closing out 2023 into 2024? What would you recommend, say, to a person that reaches out to you selling a home, or what to expect? And then obviously a person that you're shopping a home with, what should they expect?
Yeah, our market is still, very good. We're still, a lot of the kind of part-time buyers have been weeded out. But there are a lot of strong buyers out there that realize that, our market, has really gone on sale 5 times in the last, probably 40 years, right? And we've experienced a dip, and interest rates went up, so
Mhm.
prices went down a bit, but they've already shot right back up.
Yeah.
So a seller can expect getting a good amount for their home, probably more than they expected if all they do is read the news and everything going on. And for me personally, they're going to expect the best possible service, setting it up better than anyone else, and marketing it not only locally but nationally and internationally, and really getting the word out to bring all possible buyers out there to see their property, and a great negotiator who's going to bid up the price and make sure they get everything they should for their property.
Do you find sellers of homes really tend to come into a sale always overvaluing their property? Like, they feel like it's worth more than it is. Do you level them back down to reality to draw a bigger buzz, or what's your take on it? I've never personally sold a home for someone else, but every time I wanted to sell a property, people are like, "Hey, you're asking for more than it's worth," and that's human nature, right? You want more.
Of course, I mean, we work hard to purchase a house, get into the opportunity. I own multiple homes, and it's tough. It's tough, and we talked about how tough it is for younger kids to even have the opportunity to buy a home. So I think everyone should has the right to expect everything they want from their house. When we get in front, and it's all based on numbers, right? And everything is very transparent. Your house is probably going to sell plus or minus based on the last comparables that sold in your area. And it's easy to tell, what you've done over that house or what that house has over yours. So it's all very logical in the way that you explain it to someone, and make them, although they might think their house is worth X, you have to, show them why it's worth Y, and why, this is what they can realistically expect from, the sale of their home. And then the added value that I bring is that marketing, setting up the property and really dialing it in so it looks absolutely amazing online, and then negotiating the heck out of it to squeeze every dollar out of the buyer, when they do submit an offer. So, that's the value add in bringing me in as a listing agent, and the accolades that I've, amassed over the years. And then, just doing your best to present it in the best way possible, so you aren't leaving any money off the table for a seller.
In the Bay Area, are you still, or particularly, I should say, in San Jose area, is there still a lot of foreign investment money coming in, or has it slowed down? Because I know at one point, people from China and a lot of Asians were coming over with a lot of cash offers, especially in like the Hillsborough area and in San Mateo and Burlingame, and I'm sure in the Palo Alto area as well, in San Jose area. Are you still seeing that? Is that like a thing still, where cash offers from foreign investments are coming in hot, or is it slowed down a little bit?
Slowing down in terms of foreign investment. I mean, I think the thing I will say is, when you have a great home that goes on the market, it still generates so much attention, and you'll still get an all cash offer. It doesn't matter, if people say the market's down or up, you get a beautiful, beautiful house and you'll generate multiple offers no matter what, because, God didn't create any more land around here, right? It's all taken up. So there's only a certain amount of space. There's only a certain amount of 10,000 square foot lots out there, with a beautiful home on it. So when those opportunities come up, there's so much, capital in this area, and it's not going anywhere. People might have stepped back from the home buying process. When that nice house does come up, they jump on it and they buy it right away.
Let's talk about some of the biggest deals you made. And what did you learn from your biggest deal? Let's say biggest home sale, or what was the one thing you remember about a deal, a funny experience, or anything like a lesson from your biggest closed deals?
I think I've realized how much one deal can change, your future and the direction that you go. I had a great, she's still a client with me right now. She built a brand new house in Campbell, which is right next to San Jose. And although my kind of star was on the rise, and I was starting to sell a lot more in 21, she gave me an opportunity to list her house that would eventually be one of my highest sales. And we were kind of coming out of COVID, and there wasn't as much parties and gatherings, and I ended up throwing a huge party and brought 50, 60 people out. And her expectation was like 3.5, 3.6 for the house. And I ended up bringing in 2 agents that I invited to the party. Both of them brought their buyers. They ended up after the party, the night after, they ended up competing for the home. I got, both those offers. We started at 3.8, drove them both up. I ended up getting her 4.2, which was the ever in Campbell at that time. They elected to go with the 4 million number because it was a solid all cash offer. It's just, taking, I had to take a little bit less in commission because, she was a brand new home. She wasn't budging. She was tough. It's not something I'll do anymore. But that one sale kind of catapulted me and kind of put me on the map and kind of got me.
Because it was the highest sale at that time in that area, and that really put your name on the map.
Yeah. And it just, so much from that happened. Right. And people started looking at me differently. And from there, I, proceeded, I think, to sell another probably like 70 million that year. And then the next year, continue to go off and sell another 170.
So at any point, anything can pop off, and you could be maybe not doing as well one day, but if you keep working and you get the right opportunity, the right time, and the right amount of luck and work ethic, it could catapult you in, to a new direction or a new level. All right. What about setbacks? How do you handle setbacks, and how do you deal with difficult people? And it could be people you're selling a home for, or people you work with, but just how do you handle setbacks? Because everyone has them, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast. Not everyone's. It's not peachy, peaches and cream all the time. We don't live in utopia, and obviously you deal with some adversity. And how do you handle setbacks? How do you deal with difficult people?
I think the biggest thing is that I put so much. I give everything to this business. 150%, right? And my biggest thing is that everyone doesn't put the same amount of effort into it. Everyone doesn't give you 110% every day, right? Everyone has their off days. And just, learning how to work with different people, learning how to work with people who don't have the same vision or they have the same long-term mindset that this is not going to happen tomorrow. This is going to happen, in 5 years, 10 years, right? So I think, doing my best. I'm not the best at that. I think that's one thing that I've had to really work on over time, and understand that no one's going to, not a lot of people are going to work the way that I do, right? Not a lot of people are going to go as hard as I do, get up early, leave late. So you kind of just have to, see everyone's, positives and trying to bring those out as best as you can, because regardless of, how well I feel I've done, it was definitely a team effort to, put up the numbers I had. There's no way I would have done it without my amazing assistant at that time and the team that I had around me. So, I feel I'm, great at bringing people up and building people up and motivating people. And that's always been, one trait that I've done well with.
This is such a competitive market. When I was employing people here in the Bay Area a lot, and at one point we had quite a few employees, but they're constantly getting recruited. They're constantly, top talent will want to be paid top level or whatever. But how do you keep people with you in such a market where I'm sure you have, some challenges of keeping your staff where someone else may want to get them to a bigger agency, et cetera?
Yeah, there's constant shuffle in this, in this industry, and you got to do, what's best for you. Going back to the fact that, I think the agent is what's really marketed these days, and not so much the brokerage. So I think you got to understand that, if you are going to help people, level up and improve and get better, they're gonna leave, right? They're gonna eventually, want to be their own person. And if you don't, then you're not a good enough teacher, right? When I jumped on, my mentor's team, he taught me everything he could, and then I went off and kind of did my own thing. Then you circle back, 4 years later, and now we're partners, right?
Oh, wow.
And it's crazy how full circle everything goes. But I don't think I would have ever been able to come to the point where I could, be considered an equal if I didn't go through all those things, right? And if he didn't build me up to the point where, putting the foundation in place for me to have the success that I did. So, anytime I speak, anytime I, have get any type of praise, I always put the praise that way, because, he helped me get to this point. And again, things coming full circle, I was able to see it firsthand. So, when I started a team in 2021 and built it from zero to, about 35 people, I had no problem, showing everything that I do, giving every tip and trick that I've learned.
So you were saying basically when you have a partner and your partner was your mentor, you show the respect back at all times because he helped you get to a level that you're at today. And therefore, you kind of have to, at times, maybe let him be a lead or let him feel that way. Because I feel like I've had partners that I've brought up, and when the respect has faded, and not necessarily in a level where they didn't outgrow me or maybe they knew the better decision at that time. When the individual did not show appreciation or forgot what they were doing before they were in business with me, at that point, the mindset of the partner, I think, changes. And I'm so happy to hear that you still show that level of respect. Because if you don't, in my experience, and this is for the audience, not just, for you, when you don't show the level of respect to, say, the Michael Jordan and that team, you know what I mean? It just becomes a dynamic that kind of breaks, or it has to be a separation where two people are now alphas leading their own way. That's cool that you do. All right, talk as we wrap up here, Lex. Talk a little bit of outside. We talked a lot about real estate. We talked a little bit about you working out. What do you do outside of real estate? Are you in Santana Row hanging out? Are you enjoying time with, I don't know if you're married, kids, etc.? Give me a little bit about your personality, of what you love to do outside of real estate and marketing in this case.
No family, no kids. Kind of a bland answer, but every day is built around this and building this business and building a lifestyle that, that I want for myself. I don't plan on doing this forever, and, hoping to make my exit in the next, 5 to 7 years, and have some things in place to allow that to happen. So I know that
with passive income through your properties,
passive income,
a sale,
side business, a lot of different things that, we're working on here. So, it's all, for me, it's all a daily, kind of grind to get to that point. Definitely have fun with friends, like to go out, but, a lot of that's kind of, not as exciting to me anymore. Really just want to progress forward. And I feel like, we kind of talked about it. I have so far to go in this industry, that, taking my foot off the gas right now is not something that I'm willing to do for anything.
I see. So you're currently not dating either.
Yeah.
Somewhat dating.
Hey, working on it.
I gotcha. We won't go too deep into that, but Santana Row is definitely a nice, lively scene, and I'm sure if you have a place right there, then it's it's hard to not go down into the pit, I should say, and go to some of those restaurants. All right. Well, if you could, let's say you see Lex as a young man growing up somewhere and you go back in time, like the time machine or Back to the Future, so to speak. I ask everybody this question. What piece of advice do you give yourself when you're younger?
Yeah, become an entrepreneur earlier and take those risks earlier in life. Take as many risks as you can, because in your 20s and your 30s, you got plenty of time to come back from a bad choice or a bad mistake that you've made. So you're only gonna get better by going through those hard times, through those mistakes. So try to make as many mistakes as you can. So
I agree. It's if you're going to want more in, especially the area we live in and maybe in America, you really got to work for yourself. You're not going to get to that level of wealth having, working for someone else or doing something else without having some side businesses or partnerships. And I will add to that as well, Lex, stay out of trouble. I think, a lot of people are impatient. They'll do some things that can set them back. As well, and stay out of trouble is a big one. Anything else you want to add, my man, to this podcast? I truly appreciate your time, and anything you want to say, add, put out there. Now's the time to do it.
Oh, just really thankful for the opportunity. Anyone out there watching can follow me at Lex Homes. Starting from the ground floor again and trying to get back to being one of the top agents in the country. And it's going to be a grind getting there, but definitely tell my story online, and hope people grab some popcorn and watch the journey.
I love that. And we're going to link you below, your Instagram and any information that you provide. Guys, you've heard it from Lex. Lex, in 2021 and 2022 was an outstanding real estate agent, some of the highest numbers in one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive area right now in the country. And definitely came from the ground up. It's humble. It's humbling. He is humble. And truly appreciate him coming on the Ideal Hour podcast to talk about some of his successes, some of his falls and shortcomings, as well as understanding what it takes to be in such an area that's so competitive, where it's not easy to just do one thing. So Lex, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. And you're welcome anytime. And if I ever buy a property in San Jose or sell one, I know who to call.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.